is our master class series. This class is Audition Techniques with Danny Manning. So Danny, take it away.
All right, cool. Well, when they asked about master classes, I just kind of wanted to think about something that maybe you wouldn't get from another angle, and something that I've had a large amount of experience with from certain perspectives. I think that when you think about going in for an audition, and I mean, we literally have TV shows about it now, about the audition process, you know, is something very specific to each and every time you do it, but there are certain things about it that you can kind of look for similarities. In my own experience, I have music directed or directed probably over 45 musicals at this point through my career. Those varying levels, everything from, you know, kids about your age, really good children's theater kind of experiences, to full-scale community theater musicals, and then professional musicals. Even just last year, some of the School of Rock students came down to see American Idiot at the Carnegie over in Kentucky, which is a super cool musical. If you ever have a chance to go see it and you like Green Day, it's pretty interesting. But being in that role, I'm sitting on the other side of the table. You know, I've got Simon's spot on the other side, and you got to think sometimes like what's going through our heads. And you get a little bit of insight from that, from American Idol or The Voice or something like that. But those are geared for very specific, like, you know, that's not really real life. I mean, all of that's kind of already been worked out and pre-planned. And, you know, it's probably to a degree scripted just as much as any other part of any show. Let me plug in my iPad real quick before I forget. So when we're on the other side of this table, I mean, I've literally seen thousands and thousands and thousands of voice auditions. So this is more of a for the singer audition technique to a degree, because that's kind of my area of expertise. But some of the different instrument things and auditions, I'll touch on those because I do have some experience with them. And really, like, you'll just have to kind of look for the commonalities. I have to admit, in a lot of ways, I feel like that an instrumental audition is maybe a little more straightforward. You don't have to necessarily emote as much character and emotion as you do for like a theatrical audition for musical theater, or even maybe for the front man of like a band. I mean, you know, when you walk through that door, you're wanting to present like a certain character to the people that you're going to be making music with, right? So if you're walking in and you are, you know, hesitant, or we'll kind of go through that point by point, but mainly a lot of information for the singers, and then we'll kind of touch on the instrumentalists. So, and who knows, maybe if you're not even like a lead singer, you may be wanting to sing, and a lot of kids go ahead and do the musical, you know, especially boys, they're always looking for boys. So at any rate, you're going to have to probably do an audition at that point. Or maybe you see some cool show. Maybe you see that there's an American Idiot younger version or community version to somebody. So it's been done in Cincinnati in non-professional settings. So you guys in School of Rock, don't forget that the musical theater world these days is full of rock musicals. Okay,
I have inside knowledge that there may be a local production of School of Rock coming.
Okay.
Very soon.
What do you mean, like a local production of school? You mean Schoolhouse Rock or
School of Rock the musical?
Okay. Does that exist?
There's a junior version.
Yeah, School of Rock.
Yeah, you heard of it?
yeah. The thing that this entire thing probably spawned from, Jack Black. Sure, the musical. Yeah, it was.
No, they spawned from us. We came first before the movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
After the School of Rock.
The movie is based on us. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Didn't know that. I just always kind of assumed, since it was so long ago, that it came, you know, the other way. But anyway, the point being is that there's probably a pretty good chance that everybody in our school, or at least like a good percentage, might want to do a musical at some point. And most of them these days are rock musicals. I mean, they really are. There's everything from reviews to, you know, even like a Spring Awakening. That's a rock musical. There's no like musical theater in that, really. It's Duncan Sheik, who was a 90s artist, wrote all the music for Spring Awakening. So most of them, except for a few like maybe Book of Mormon and a few others, are still kind of legit musical theater, but rock is where it is. I mean, if you can believe it, And think about this. I have actually had CCMers in their senior year getting ready to go onto Broadway that had not had like mic experience, and that I had hired for different gigs, maybe to front a rock band, and the kids didn't know how to hold a mic. I would think anybody would want to know that. So even those Broadway guys are going to New York and they're auditioning for bands, you're going to need to learn to use a mic. There's so much of what you're learning in School of Rock that will apply to musical theater. So it's going to kind of focus on that. So I've got 4 points, and I'm not going to pull it up on the screen. I could probably send this document that details all this posted somewhere if you want, Josh. But let's talk about like the song itself. So this is something that is very, very, very important. And you do hear a lot of this talk, especially in the older days of like American Idol, when they would say, you know, it's all about song selection. It's all about song selection, especially when they get like into the competition round. So that kind of applies to your musical theater auditions or even your band auditions too, but especially for musical theater, because you're trying to show that you know how to emote character. And, you know, some of the greatest rock and rollers were master actors when you think about the character that they put into their performances. I mean, you think about Freddie Mercury, you think about Elton John. I mean, Elton was literally like 2 different people. You really see that in the movies too, of how, you know, as accurate as they are, of how, you know, introverted they could be when they were off the stage. And so I feel that way as a musician. Put me on stage and I'll jump around like crazy and be a madman, but in real life, I'm not as apt to do that. So when you're picking your songs, let's think about just a couple of things. Range, okay? No one is going to be impressed if you sing outside of your range and it doesn't sound good. So one of the main focuses that you always want to think about in auditions, and this is like a huge point that pretty much carries into each of the 4 sections of what we're thinking about here, is that the song selection is not going to do you any good if you're not good at that song. So a lot of people think, well, I want to do this song in my audition because it's harder and it's going to show off more, or that, you know, I can almost get it. My recommendation would be for instrumentalists and for singers, don't sing the song that is hard for you, okay? You have to put yourself into the mind of what we are thinking about on the other side of that table, which is I might have to watch 150 auditions today, okay? And so I need something that makes me fall in love with you. I mean, that is very, very true. I don't care if you're auditioning for jazz piano at, you know, Boston Conservatory, or if you're auditioning for a violin in the New York Philharmonic. Your personality is still going to influence people. And we're such a personality driven society right now anyway. So when you pick a song, it doesn't do you any good if you struggle with that song. Now, if they specifically ask you to play a piece or this or that, or say, you know, these songs are ones we want you to actually learn and play, that does happen, then you got to do it. They want to see how well you learned it. That's a completely different situation. But as far as what you get to pick, if you are auditioning for a musical and it's your choice as to what song you're going to do, pick a song that fits you, okay? Then once you get into the song, you'll find that there's better parts of the song for you than not. Typically, you want to make sure you have a section of the song that you want to do, okay? Once again, this could be true of any instrument, but especially in musical theater auditions, and especially if it's a large call, because then we're looking to cut you as quickly as absolutely possible. This is the other thing you have to understand too. If it's an open call, or even sometimes if it's a callback, you just can't listen to people for like 6 or 7 minutes, you know? So don't think that you're going to do some song that you're going to tell like the whole story, and that's going to be what you want to communicate, because there's a really, really good chance that they're not going to let you do that. So you have to find like the meat of that song. Maybe you start at the bridge. Maybe you then go back in and do just one verse. That's very easy to do in a lot of songs, okay? So when you're thinking about the song selection, range is very important. Now, here's the good news that was different than when I first gave these seminars. Now we have mechanisms to easily transpose songs, okay? So used to be that if you were going into an audition for musical theater, and this would still be the case, you know, you need to have the music, and we're going to talk about that in a different section. But you were limited on what that music could be. You couldn't get it in every key. You know, you couldn't go on to Music Notes or Sheet Music Direct or whatever partner that we're most tied in with is the one you should be using all the time. the Hal Leonard stuff is all accessible to School of Rock. And a lot of times they go through a variety of keys. Now, the reason why they don't list them all right away is because sometimes there's some theoretical issues in there with the writing that can complicate certain keys. But I'm pretty sure that Sheet Music Direct is just changed to every key. They just give you a little plus and minus, just like you see on a million other websites, like for dates and stuff. And you can just take it up or down as many half notes or whole notes as you want, up or down. So those are advantages that you have. So like, for instance, I'm sitting here at my piano. If I was doing, let's say I wanted to do Only the Good Die Young. Come out, Virginia, don't let me wait. Well, right out of the gate, I can feel that that's that original key, and I do that song, but I really have to warm up. Is not like the greatest if I'm just coming in cold. So, you know, on your transpose button or with the capo, you can just start exploring. So I'll put it down like 3 half steps. Come out, Virginia, don't let me wait. Catholic girl, stop much too late. So right out of the gate, I feel more confident about where that sits in my voice because my voice is lower than his. So you've got the advantage that you can do that. And then if you can really nail the song, whatever song it is, that's going to be what sticks out in their mind. You have to do something that day to stick out, especially in like large call situations. And you'd be surprised at how important that is. And even when you go back and you don't really want to go back and look at like videos for 85 auditions either. So, you know, we typically will videotape them, but it's really tedious to do that. It can be helpful, but the most important thing is once you pick the song, that is what you are kind of showing the very best of you. That's the best way I can phrase it up. And I think that's a big misconception. So let me skip on from that. And use the resources. So the next thing that I had kind of made a note of would be to look at like your, they do make specific songs of vocal parts, which can kind of give you a little heads up. And I'm sure like Julianne and people like that have seen these before, where you have, you can go and get like a selection of multiple musical theater tunes that are for a specific voice type. So if you're a tenor, you can get a tenor, but that's really more, you know, as long as you're working with your voice teachers or your private teachers on your music, they'll know how to help you with that kind of stuff. The other big thing for singers too, is you have to be careful about not picking a song, and I know the voice teachers in the room would agree with me 1000%, that just stays in your break, because that's going to be more exposed when you're in an audition situation and you're nervous. I mean, that's not to say you shouldn't demonstrate where your break is and, you know, try to show them what you're capable in that regard. And then as you move on, you may get down to the point to where you just kind of have to push it. But in that first, your goal is to give yourself as much of an advantage as absolutely possible. Okay. You've got a limited amount of time. Same thing with the college audition, you know, they're seeing, not only are they seeing people that one day, they're seeing people month after month after month after month. So it's the ones that perform the best, in my opinion, and what stands out to me as a person on the other side of the table, way more than like the complexity of it. Now, when you get at certain levels, then that complexity becomes more important. But, you know, at least getting into the first step of it, you really get to focus on what sells you, okay? And that's just going to be true of this, especially in the song selection. I like songs that show different things within the song. So if you pick, like if you're going to use a rock song for something and it's literally the same chords and very similar melody between the chorus and the bridge and the verse, that's not a great audition song. Some musical theater songs are kind of like repetitive. They just kind of do the same thing. I advise people to look for songs that have more of a contrast within the song itself, especially if you're not going to get a chance to do the whole thing. That's when you kind of carve it up, pick the best spots. But if you can do the whole thing, do something that has a tempo change in it. Do not crazy, because you also have an accompanist. But if you are using like your own soundtrack, that a lot of people will let you bring in your own track, and they'll just have, you know, an iPod speaker there ready for you to plug it in. That's actually as a judge or adjudicator or whatever, I love that, because I don't care unless you have, and I have had them, but unless you have like a master Broadway accompanist that just can literally read the notes off the page at an audition if you're using a piano player, they're going to not play it the way you want it. So the cool part about like picking a song that you can get a track to is that you can cater that track for you. And you know exactly where the pauses are in it. You know exactly what the timing of it is. But these are things that you ask, okay? So when it comes to your song selection, if you want to use an accompaniment, just make sure you sift through the information. Almost always it says if it is allowed or not. And if it doesn't tell you, then you should always ask, okay? Once again, the prep for actually going in, but that's what we're getting to next. I think this is a good point too, especially for your age. Also, make sure that your songs are appropriate subject matter for who you are and what your age is. We let you push that envelope in certain settings, but we do think about like the language and the lyrics that you use when we do our shows. And we love rock and roll, and we've all heard it all, and we know you've all heard it all. But you know, it's just like common decency. I'll give you a good example. Like there's a song, and Julianne might know which musical, but it's an old one. It's like something 101 pounds of fun. She's my little honey bun. Okay, very old song.
From South Pacific. I was in it
right.
with Cincinnati.
Great. I mean, fairly innocent musical in general.
That took 2 seconds, just FYI.
I knew she would know. But I mean, even though that's in like a very innocent musical, like I don't want to see a 10-year-old singing that song. I just don't. You can't help but think, yeah, this is like, you know, it's too mature for the younger ages. And that actually happens a lot in kids theater. Just as an aside, like, I don't know, we mainly have older kids in the room, I think, today, but you know, like a 7-year-old is singing, you know, like all that jazz from Chicago. No, just do not do that. Okay. But honestly, like any of you, I don't want to see a 14-year-old girl singing all that jazz either. I really don't. It's just not, you know, so put some thought in your song selection about, hey, maybe I can pick a song that really just fits my own personality, and then I won't have to sell it that much, you know? But those are considerations that you should be thinking about. And I think they're important. Now, also make sure, and this is a big one, think about what the song is going to tell us for what you're auditioning for, okay? So let's just flip this around to jazz. If I'm auditioning for like a bebop group, and they're defined as a bebop group, and they play bebop, I shouldn't come in and play like Lenny Pickett, or, you know, like from Tower of Power, like a rock and roll style, or even like old band swing style if I'm going to play for them. You know, so be specific as to what it ever. So the biggest example for me as somebody casting a show, you know, if let's just use the last musical that I did. So if Green Day is the musical, there is only rock and roll and Green Day style, punk style in that musical, right? So if you can't do that, you're not going to get in that musical. That would, you know, it has to be that specific. The leads should all sound as close to them, and they really did kind of define their own sound. So a lot of what I did as music director was trying to get them to sound like Green Day. Now, a lot of times I won't do that because most musicals you kind of want to have your individual take, but this one you needed that. So I had people come in and sing like, you know, something from Hello Dolly or Carousel, or like old school musical theater with the full vibrato and all that. Well, that told me really absolutely nothing about how they would fit into this show. And then that's also revealing of the fact that, well, did they really think about, did they have any idea at all what this musical is? Like, did they look up a clip of it? You know, or they're singing like classical people, arias that they've learned in, you know, music class in college, and they'll come in and do them for like, you know, Jersey Boys or something. And you just, that's rock and roll. So you do need to think about showing off the voice. Now, on the flip side of that, if you wanted to do like a legit musical, don't come in and do, you know, like a Rolling Stone or some other, you know, like classic rock song or something. It really doesn't tell us what you can do. You know, if you're not used to doing musical theater, throw it at your voice teachers. I bet you anything they'll be happy to help, or ask one of the voice teachers, hey, can you just help me for like 15 or 20 minutes on the style of this? And we all know all the different styles. We don't really teach musical theater like as something that we're going to perform, but I'll still throw certain musical theater just to work on that style. So very important to know your resources. That's probably one of the biggest mistakes that I see people make, is not just song choice as far as all the other details that I just said, but more of the song choice of where you really don't, well, it's the song choice of being the wrong song for the type of music that that whatever it is going to be. So that's the summation of that. Let me move on. And that's kind of it for that section. Now, the next section that I defined is I labeled song preparation. We didn't talk about most of this, and this is really what you get to do with your private voice teachers, but these are things that you can do on your own too. I think every voice teacher would say that you should do this, whether you're auditioning for something or not. But like singing in front of a mirror, okay? Don't forget to do that or use that as a tool for your advantage when you are doing your last prep, because boy, it's very revealing. You know, also, obviously these days you can just record yourself and watch yourself doing it, so that's fine. But I think actually walking up to a mirror and seeing like your actual reflection in real time, look at what your face is doing. Is your eyebrow twitching in a weird way that you weren't aware was happening at that moment in time? Are you constantly fidgeting with your pockets or something like that? Most people, when they do those little quirky things, do not realize that they are doing them at that time. And you have to like wring that out of yourself. People just do it. You know, you see it on stage with bands, and they just keep doing like some gesture over and over again. Not like a dance move or whatever, but maybe they just like pick at their shirt over and over. If they were being filmed for a video, the director would say, stop picking at your shirt, okay? So when you're seeing yourself doing all that, that's really important. So perform for yourself. I talked about the things that you're looking for. And then the big part of song prep is what we are at School of Rock, which is taking whatever you're using out in life and having one of your pros look at it that you work with every day at the school, your teachers. And once again, use the resources of, you know, if you want to work on some keyboard part and you're not doing keyboard lessons and you're auditioning for something that involves a keyboard, you can talk to me anytime. I mean, anytime I have 15 or 20 minutes, I might just pop in a room and you can play for me what you've already prepared. And then I can give you a little bit of feedback or anything like that. I'm sure once again that the voice teachers would be more than happy to do that. So it's very important that you don't go into these things without a plan. Okay. I also see that a lot too. You can see that somebody noticed that there was an audition somewhere like 3 days ago, and they just show up and they're like, well, I'm just here. You know, I'll sing happy birthday for you or something like that. Awful, terrible idea. Bottom of the pile immediately. You're going to, I mean, unless they just happen to be absolutely remarkable and look exactly what you were looking for, but you know, let's not go down that road. So when you walk in the door, you want to have just like a presentation that starts from the second you walk in. So that's kind of where we are right now. That presentation has to be, the more eyes you have on that before you go, the better. Let your mom and dad see it. Let your siblings see it. Let your friends see your auditions. I mean, you are already going to be very, very nervous, all right? It's the human condition. We can't help it. You want something and you're having to show off something that's a skill at the same time, which is an extremely nerve-wracking experience. Now, I will tell you this, on the other side of the table, once you've done it for a long time and you're casting a show or, you know, doing auditions for music school, you can see through the nerves most of the time to the talent. You really can. So that's a big lesson too, is you don't be thrown off by your nerves. Almost everybody's nervous. And so, you know, it's great on those that are so experienced, or maybe you have a personal connection to them that puts them at ease, that they can just let those nerves go. But even those people get nervous sometimes because you want it. You're passionate about it. I mean, you wouldn't be there if you didn't want to do it. And you need to give that impression too. But we're almost to that section. Haven't quite got in the door of the audition room yet. We're still, see now, already we've spent a half an hour almost talking about prep. And that's going to be true every situation you ever walk into, you know. The luxury of rehearsal that we have at School of Rock goes away in real life. So if you're going to play, always be prepared. The audition is no exception to that. Okay, here's a couple of key points that people don't think about too. Also something that drives the directors insane. Music for the piano needs to be ready to roll. And so cut it up. Now it's nice because you can just put it on an iPad. That would be phenomenal. Put it on an iPad. This is the accompaniment that you're going to use if you're using an accompanist as a singer. If you are accompanying yourself, which many of you could do, I know Logan just did it yesterday for us in the Bowie show, and you need a chart, that's fine. Unless they tell you they want you to do something from memory, if you need to have a chart for something, take it. Don't be tied to it, but put it there if you need it. But have that all organized and ready to go. Now, what can you do? The ones in the Bowie show, if you look at the sheet music that I've put together for you guys on at least most of our new songs since we've been apart, is I go in through there and I make it so you never have to flip a page back. So if you are preparing music either for your accompanist or even for yourself, or even just when you're out playing, you can just grab sheet music off of any one of our services that we already have, and then just put it in like Fourscore or any music app that's specifically geared for like a PDF reader that's for a music app, and just edit it down. So, you know, it's going to have a first ending where it takes you back 5 pages. You don't want to flip back 5 pages. So let me just take you through that process, because that can really help your auditions too, and just your musical life. You go on to Music Notes, you go on to Sheet Music Direct, you get a piece of music, right? You might, if it's Sheet Music Direct, it usually comes as a PDF, and then you just upload that into your Fourscore. And there are other music programs that do it. I use Fourscore. A lot of my friends use Fourscore. We use it because it's made to augment and edit music, like specifically. So when you throw it in there, you're going to see that, like, okay, the sheet music gave me the verse and the chorus, and then I had to flip back 5 pages, right? Just duplicate those pages. You go to the setting where you can change the order of the pages, and then you just duplicate whatever pages you need, and then just scratch out like the first ending with like the little white, and you can do it very nicely. And then you just keep flipping this way. What we're trying to avoid is this. And then, like you would with a book of music, you don't have to do that. See, the beauty of the iPad is that you can just keep on adding pages forever. There's also a Bluetooth pedal that they make that you could move with your iPad. So maybe you even take that with you with the iPad into the audition, and most pianists at this point would be familiar with that. And then you don't have to worry about them struggling with the pages. See, this is the other part that people forget, is that if you're going into an audition with an accompanist, there's another learning curve altogether. Like maybe they'll be really good at the song you picked, and maybe they wouldn't. Quick backtrack to song selection. Don't pick parts that have such a hard piano part that the piano part is going to detract from you, okay? A lot of times in musical theater, we really encourage people to avoid Sondheim, our great, you know, composer, mainly because of the piano parts. They're so hard. And so I've had accompanist that can handle them, but a lot of times you get just like the guy they use all the time for auditions, and he gets most of it, but you know, he's not nailing that Sondheim on the first go round. And then who suffers from that? The singer, the person auditioning, is the one who has to bear the brunt of that hard piano part. Be ready to sing a cappella. And that's another thing that you should have ready with your voice teachers. I'm bad about having people do it because, you know, I just have a drive to want to accompany them. But there's also every chance that you walk into audition like American Idol style, where they won't give you an accompanist at first. And then maybe eventually you will have an accompanist. Or maybe they specifically want you to sing a cappella so they can hear your pitch. So think about what singing without an instrument reveals. You know, we as singers especially rely a lot on the pitches of the piano to get us through the song. Sometimes it's nice to hear somebody just sing a cappella and see if they keep their pitch all the way through. That's something you singers should also do all the time on your own, is check your a cappella singing for pitch, you know, or record yourself and listen it back and see, are you really nailing those pitches without an instrument? But there are plenty of situations in auditions today where if you're doing a singing audition, you may be asked to go a cappella. Now, this is the same kind of thing for like a guitar audition at times too. So if you're a guitar player, I know for a fact that when you go into CCM on any other instrument, really on any instrument, that you're going to be asked to play with a band. Okay. So you should be ready to do that. You should be ready to jump in. So that's just something you should be aware of, but that'll all be spelled out in your information. Now, if you are using the edited iPad way or even just the sheet music way. So let's say you're actually going to use sheet music. Sometimes that's just the way it's got to be. You're going to print the music out and take it in. Have it in a binder or have it taped together. Scratch out the sections, like make that chart for your accompanist as clear as a bell. Okay? It's very, very important to not mess up your audition because of that. So that's the other side of that coin. If you're not going to do it electronically, basically just make it easy. Some of you may feel like this is all very obvious. Most of you, though, probably haven't thought. You know, you can kind of see, if you see people audition for years, like they get each one of these pieces of the puzzle over each experience. But hopefully with some of this information, you will not have to have such a slow learning rate on your auditions. Another big thing, especially for jazz auditions, for wind ensemble auditions, for any type of college auditions, if they give you a specific time, they are serious about what that time limit is. So once again, when you're doing your song selection, make sure that you know how long your song is. And if they've told you, and some places are really picky about it. I mean, I guarantee you, if you go into most conservatories, which many of you may want to, that you're going to need to know exactly that time. And some of them really don't, you know, they're like annoyed that that went longer. Once again, this just plays into, it's a singular experience for you. It might be 100 of you for us that day. So make it easy. All right, now we moved on to the audition part. And that will probably actually be less information than what we talked about with the prep, because prep always seems to ends up taking much more time and much more effort. But, you know, okay, so here you've arrived and you're going to do your audition. Let's even just say it's like for a band. Let's just, you know, some band that you saw in City Beat, it's a good band. You want to get in that band. And they're having auditions for the singer. So, or let's see, pick a different instrument. It's for the bass. It doesn't really matter. And so I've done that too. I had a great original band when I first moved into Cincinnati, and we just had this astounding drummer that was very Garibaldi influenced from Tower Power. You just don't find people like that often. He was just kind of like a virtuosic player. And then he had to quit the band after like 4 years and 2 albums. And we went through audition after audition after audition. I can tell you in that setting too, it was the same mistakes. So when you hit the door, you have to exude like a personality that makes people really attached to you, at least preliminarily. And then to go along with that are the next steps that here are the big no-nos in the room. Dress the part, okay? This is a huge mistake that people make as well. I see it all the time. You guys might be a little more savvy, so you might be a little more aware of this kind of thing. But you want to come in some form of flashy, period. It doesn't necessarily have to be a button-down shirt and a pair of khaki pants, because it needs to be more to what your style is. But come in that room looking sharp. I mean, it might be rock and roll sharp. It might be like just like a really cool shirt. And especially like a really cool shirt, because a lot of times we will refer to you as that guy in the Pink Floyd shirt for the rest of the day. That is the easiest way. So huge bonus to think about wearing something that makes you jump out if it's like a panel audition. Same thing though, when you come into a room to audition for a local band, you know, you walk in the room, you think about it if it were you and you were the band and the guy's coming in to audition for you. If they come in looking cool and fun and have like sharp clothes on or whatever, they fit the mold of what you're looking for right out of the gate for what your band is, or at least it tells you that they're taking it seriously. Maybe your band never wears anything like as sharp as that, but when you go in, you should look cool. You should put some effort into looking like you came to take yourself seriously. And that goes a long way. And be personable. Now, the other thing that is a big one is not being apologetic. Now, this is like probably the biggest thing that drives me insane. And I don't even like people to do it in their lessons because it's just not necessary. Don't be apologetic for anything when you walk in that room. Now, what do I mean by apologetic? That would be like, oh, I'm not warmed up. Don't ever say that. Don't, because like, I don't need to know that. I mean, maybe you sound 10 million times better when you're warmed up, but maybe you sound great when you're not warmed up. I don't want to go into your audition thinking, oh, she's not warmed up, so this should be interesting. Don't plant that seed. So psychology of the audition, once you start the performance, is huge. But that's also before you ever play a note. So when you walk into the room, don't sow seeds of doubts. Never say something like, oh, I just found out about this yesterday. Don't say that, ever. Or I haven't known this piece of music for that long. Yeah, just, I don't want to know, like, the deficiencies that you have, like, right out. It's not helping. Like, you think you're saying it because you think that that's somehow going to make us think, oh, well, she hasn't known it for very long, so I'm going to be more gracious in how I feel about this performance. No, all that tells me is that you brought in something that you barely know, so that you didn't do any preparation. And maybe you didn't, but I don't need to know that. And maybe you'll pull it off and I won't know that you just learned this song yesterday. Maybe you're just that good. But if you tell me that, then I'm going to watch you the whole time seeing, well, did she really learn it? Or, oh yeah, I can definitely tell that this was your, I might just think it's nerves. Okay. If you do something weird in a song. But if you tell me that you barely know it, so that's like obviously a big point to me. Treat every audition as if it were alive. Like if you want to be the guitar player for a killer band that you've been watching and you get the chance to go in there, don't go in there and like sort of play the audition. Play the audition with the passion that you want them to have in their band. And I'm talking about like the top tier of things, but you guys, I think any of you could end up in some remarkable situations. And even like in the local level, it gets competitive. People are looking for personality almost sometimes more than anything. Like once you have the skill set, the difference between whether you get it could be just your personality and that you put into it, which is obviously so true of musical theater. If you are a rocker and you want to do a musical theater show, you'll get a lot out of that because you'll learn the character. And trust me, a lot of your rock and roll heroes are completely different people when they come off the stage. I've played with them and they're just not that person. Theater can teach you a lot about that. Also, a lot of musical theater shows have the band on stage these days. So I used a rock band for American Idiot. They played very loudly. We contained them, but I needed them to play like Green Day, rock and roll drummer, 2 guitar players, and that's on stage, like they're part of it. Rock of Ages, they're on stage. A lot more of them. So when they are auditioning for a guitar player, so let's say Logan wants to come in and do an audition for Rock of Ages to be the on-stage guitar player. Well, there's going to be a bunch of guitar players that can play that book around, maybe even in circles around you, Logan. But if they like the way you look, that's going to be like 40 to 50% of it in that situation. So go in there, obviously always do the best you can. But like there are some guys in town that just play like every musical theater show. They're down there in that pit and you see them like Ted Karras is one of the masters in town of playing in general. Dixie's husband, our voice teacher. And he's down there in that pit all the time, but nothing against Ted, but I'm not putting him as the guitar player in my Green Day show. He's much, he's considerably older than Green Day would have been. And he doesn't look like a little wayfish punk rocker. Like I'm actually casting that part for a guitar player. Now I have to be able to play it because they are playing the whole book, and it's not, it's its own animal for sure. But so if you're thinking about doing musicals, that's one way you can do it, even if you're not a singer. Now, once we get into, we said treat it live. Another one too. And you do see some of this. I mean, Demi Lovato just did it on the Grammys. Stunning moment. If you make a mistake, just stop. Just stop. It's okay. It's just like everything else in life. 50% of what is going to be thrown at you, how well you do with it is how you handle it, right? Like we're all dealing with right now. We're all trying to figure out ways to handle it. But it's no different in the microcosm of an audition. If you get tripped up, just stop and say, you know what, I got tripped up and I'd like to start this over. I'm always going to be like, great. You recognize, I mean, Demi Lovato in the middle of the Grammys this year, if you didn't see it, great Grammys, your age group and the ones right before you have elevated music back to an amazing level in this world, which is awesome. She's standing in the middle of the entire arena in LA, you know, where the Lakers play, I believe, by herself with a piano. After she just went all this controversy with her depression and, you know, she's had her issues, you know, wrote a song about it, started to sing it and got choked up. And you know what? She just stopped. And she figured it out. And then she gave like one of the best performances I think I've ever seen in my entire life. I even get a little choked up about it just because she was so like, she just killed it. You know, she took the guts of her emotions, she just threw them on the stage. And she couldn't do it right away. And then she stopped and she figured it out and she moved on, you know. That's true for any situation you're playing in, but especially when you're auditioning, because everybody's cool. Every now and again, you might get some stodgy professor who, you know, is very intimidating and seems like they're a little annoyed. But I would say I would be very surprised. No judge or director or producer that I've ever worked with ever had an issue with somebody just stopping and collecting themselves and then giving us a better performance, right? Because that's it. That's all we're going to get of you. I mean, that is the biggest lesson of this whole talk, is that all we're going to get of you is that brief moment in time, right? The briefest moment of time. And everything, 45 minutes almost worth of details to get maybe a minute and a half, or maybe 2. Or if it's a college audition, maybe 15 minutes. So everything you do on the front end of it and everything you do to present yourself turns out is in complete equal with the actual music that you're going to perform. It's in complete equal with that. Okay? Just a couple more points here and then I'll wrap it up. I really like it when people come in and tell me what they're doing. Introduce yourself, shake a hand, nothing wrong with that. Well, maybe not now, who knows? In normal times, I would tell you it's fine to shake somebody's hand, but let's just forget I didn't say that. Or forget that I did say that. But you know, my overall point you get is that you walk in the room and you want to be yourself, you know, even if you're naturally shy, just, you know, muster it up, rehearse it. Rehearse the walking in the room. Watch, have your parents have you walk in the room, have your parents be the judge. Walk in, say hi or be personable, and then just tell me what you're going to do. Tell me maybe where you're from, and I'm going to sing blah, blah, blah from blah, blah, blah. Or I'm going to play this guitar part from blah, blah, blah. I mean, if it's a formal audition with like a panel, you do that. If you're just going into your, you know, your band audition, you know, you can be, that's another thing too, though. Come in the room and start hanging out with the guys a little bit, you know. I also had drummers that just came in, they were like super awkward, you know, from the minute they hit the door. I'm just using drummers because that's what we were looking for at the time. But that can be with any instrument, especially drummers. Drummers can be very, very oddballs. But anyway, I'm getting off track. Let me just get these last couple of points. Oh, another good one you might not think about too. Don't sing to the judges, sing to the room. If you're playing, same thing, doesn't matter. If the situation dictates that you're in like a big room and there's like 3 people sitting there watching you, if you're singing especially, sing to that whole room like there was an audience out there. Okay, that goes into the part of like being, but those, you don't think about that because there's no one to make eye contact with. But even when I'm doing rehearsals with like an ensemble in a musical theater number, I'm constantly bugging them to look all the way around the room in an empty room, just to ingrain that way of thinking when you're performing. I probably look around the room even when I'm just playing by myself sometimes, because that's just like ingrained into me as a performer. A big one. Limit your, oh shoot, this, oh, no, we're good. Limit your gesturing. I would think if any of if the other 2 voice teachers in here have ever watched auditions before, they know what I'm talking about, but you can over emote. Okay. So be like conscious of like, you know, you don't, you know, I can show you the world, you know, like all this business. Just don't do that. Leave that out. Natural motions. Once again, this is all just what you figured out before you walked in the door. And when your little brother looks at you weird and goes, "Why are you doing all that weird stuff?" The little brother's just giving you probably a pretty honest answer because you look crazy. So think about, you know, I've seen it. I mean, one girl for a rather short girl about 35 in a Wizard of Oz audition for a community theater performance that I did, showed up with the full Dorothy. I mean, the dog, the living dog, a little Toto dog, and she was terrible. That did nothing for her. That's just a fun story. And she really, now here's the other thing too, unmeasured expectations, or your American Idol sour grapes contestant. You know, you get that a lot too, but that's just an aside, like people that come in and just like the little Dorothy girl was absolutely convinced that she was going to get that role. Absolutely. Didn't get a call back, called us, came back the next night anyway. Okay, separate story. I could do this all day. That's almost the end. Exit with confidence, same thing. You know, if you feel like you blew it, let's not see that. You know, don't show me that. You know, once again, these are just things that don't do any good. Like, you know, if you're frustrated with the way you did the performance, once again, I don't really want to, I don't care about that as a person who's trying to figure out what I want to put in the show. If you mess it up and you just kind of own it, that goes further than being apologetic about it. No apologizing. Don't ever get don't give them, I've said that like 12 times, I'm aware, but that's a biggie. That tells us the level of stage confidence that you have. Okay, when you come in and you feel like you have to make a bunch of excuses, you're probably going to give a somewhat apologetic performance no matter what, no matter where we get to. I want to exude confidence as a musician, as a singer. That's like a big thing. Now, the only bullet point that I didn't have on my original presentation would be just, so how do we adapt this to technology based, right? It's all the same things. Now, the nice thing about it is, depending on if you have so if I'm going to make an audition video, basically is what I'm referring to. Apply everything else I just said. I would walk in the room. I would announce it. I would imagine a virtual setting with those adjudicators sitting right on the other side, with those directors right on the other side, and do it exactly the same way. Of course, you have multiple chances to kill it, so definitely use the best take. But every take should be, I was looking up audition YouTube clips tonight just to see like what was out there last night. And yeah, a lot of people, like, they're so casual about it because they're so used to just filming themselves that way. No, the ones that jumped out at me were the ones like, all right, they stepped right up just like it was a real audition, did it, good audio, all that kind of stuff. Once again, if you're sending something in, use our resources. Talk to our mic up specialist. So who's been doing those, Josh?
Andrew Karras.
Yeah, Andrew. I was just eluding me there for a minute. Yeah, I mean, you know, come into the School of Rock one day and say, hey, I have to make this audition video. Andrew, what's the best way I can do that? Or maybe can I take 15 minutes and just do a quick run here with these mics or whatever? I mean, we're utterly here to be a resource for you when we can be in person again, but that is inevitable. And it's all the same principles as I talked about with all of the other elements of a live audition. It's the prep didn't change, the song selections didn't change. What changed only is your opportunity actually to make it better. So, you know, definitely put out something that you feel super strong about. And other than that, it just pretty much transfers all the way through. So hopefully that kind of gives you guys some insight into the other side of the table. I'm sure there are lots of opinions of other things that could be enhanced by this, but that's pretty much the long and short of it from my perspective on it. Anybody have anything they want to add?
We're open for questions. We got a few minutes here. Anybody have anything? Bella? No, Bella, are you sure? Looks like you have a question.
I have a question.
Yeah. About other two voice teachers, do you have any other helpful tips that I might have thought to not include? Or
well, my question, but I was basically talking to Bella. I was like, everything that you said was exactly what, I mean, you hit all the points. I have a music theater background as well. I was just gonna ask you where, like, where do you direct? Are there any places locally that we can see your work?
I mean, other than the big like band shows that I do for my band, Just Strange Brothers, I did 16 years with a group at Xavier called the Xavier University Singers.
Okay, cool.
And these were kind of like a fusion of rock and theater. You know, closest thing I guess you'd call it would be like a show choir, but it was only like the fact that it had like 16 singers. But I did like 3 different Alice Through the Looking Glass shows for them where I really just took it out there and used like Yes. And I mean, I would use everything from, you know, prog rock to jazz to musical theater, whatever told the story. So, and sometimes the themes were more like, I'd let them do like dating, like that was a theme of the show. So we did all kinds of music about like the art of dating and comedy numbers and all that kind of stuff. I Love You, Perfect Now, Change. I did a ton of that in that group setting. And after 16 years of that, I was just like, well, when you do something for 16 years, like you do have to like have support that wants you to make it, you know, get better and better and better. And by the 16th year, I'd kind of reached the apex of where Xavier was willing to let me take it. So I left. And other than that, I really haven't. I mean, I used to do CCM prep for years, but now I just kind of take it on a what blows my way basis. I mean, American Idiot, I knew the executive director over there at the Carnegie and through a friend.
Okay.
And it can be kind of, I haven't pushed it very hard in Cincinnati. I did do 2 musicals with Walnut conducting at Walnut Hills, Ragtime, and
that's a biggie.
You can only do that at some place like Walnut. I mean,
wow.
It has to be done. You know what I mean? It has to be racially accurate.
Absolutely.
It doesn't make any sense. It's a historical musical, so you know it's not like sometimes you can kind of fudge that a little bit in certain other musicals. But yeah, so the answer is that I'll keep you posted.
Sounds
I did
great.
have a blast doing American Idiot, and Josh, you didn't get to come, but Charlie did.
Yeah, Charlie came with Christina. They had a lot of fun with it for sure.
Yeah, and I mean that's great. I'm starting to try to again carve out a niche of maybe doing some more. You know, hopefully that'll bounce around to some other rock musicals. But I mean, I've done, like I said, like Walnut. With Walnut, it was total podium conducting. I mean, huge, giant, you know, student orchestra. So I mean, that's what my master's is actually in. But I mean, you can help me. I'm always open to like creating new things, and I do have a lot of resources. So my dream would be to take what I did at Xavier and do it. Like we have no representation of like a variety show concept in Cincinnati. Like there's nowhere you can go. Like if you just want to see like one of these shows I combined at Xavier. Like the Newbies do that to a degree, like with their big, massive Beatles shows. I don't know if you know Jeff from the Newbies, but yeah, I mean, I'm always open to that. You know, our Bowie show is pretty elaborate. That's why it was so much fun to get to do it with School of Rock, and I'll try to pull as much of that elaborateness back into it as I can. But I'm also open to like making those shows even more theatrical. I actually have some theater friends in town I was talking to. So, you know, I'd love to move it to more of a pro level.
Awesome.
Anything else you want to add to audition techniques, Kristen?
I mean, like basically you hit all the points. Like my main things are, I always tell everybody, your audition starts the minute you walk in the room, and not just the audition room, but if you're, you know, physically, you know, you walk into the building, the first person you sign in is going to have, you know, if you're a real butthead when you walk in there and then you walk into the audition room and you're like, ding. Oh, I'm so wonderful. And
people don't think
the audition monitor is going to be like, no, that person's going to be horrible to work with.
Well,
I don't care how good they are. So I always tell people that, like, the minute you walk in the door, turn it on and be cool and, you know, be yourself. But like, if you're a butthead, please don't.
Well, I'll give you
so like that's my, you know.
Yeah, I'll give you an example of that even in the American Idiot audition process. That's kind of different, that may also apply to some of our students. We had one person that's done a lot of shows over there, right? And it's actually somebody that I knew very well and was a student of mine. Gosh, 18 years ago when I was at CCM Prep, and he didn't want to audition. He just thought we should just cast him, and then, but then, well, let me back up on that just a little bit. He was willing to audition, but he didn't want to give us like the full headshot resume and all that kind of stuff. I don't know if he didn't have an updated one or whatever. And he never did give it to us, and he almost didn't get cast in the show because of that. Even though, and I told him all this out after it was done. I was like, yeah, I mean, I've known you, you're literally like my little brother, but it makes no difference. I'm still not going to cast you if you don't do the things that you're supposed to do. I don't care. I've cast you in every show that you've already been in with me 25 times. We needed a headshot, because what people don't understand is that that's another point I didn't bring up. In musical theater, headshots, that's really how we do it. That is 100% accurate on So You Think You Can Dance, on American Idol. They all lay the pictures out and look, and you may think that, now I'm sure it's much longer than you just see that short deliberation that they do on the TV show, but that's how you do it. So he didn't give us a headshot, and so we couldn't see a side by side of him with other people. I mean, yeah, I've known what he's looked like since he was 12, but I needed to see you and you. What do you look like together? Like the two leads, I needed to see them. Absolutely. So, that can be a mistake too. Don't get overconfident just because you've worked somewhere a bunch of times and just walk in like, yeah, man, I got this. And it's like, no. And I even told him how much I can do for you, man.
It's a humble confidence. It's a humble confidence. It's,
right.
There's that being also, that's the other thing too, because and this is for anything. This is not even for auditions. It can be auditions, interview, band practice, walking into regular School of Rock on a regular day. Lose the attitude, have a humble confidence about you. Be confident in what you do. And if you could be amazing, you could play all the instruments and sing all the parts and everything, but have some a humble quality to who you are, because there's nothing better than just to be able to work with somebody who is confident but also encouraging and positive. If it's the other way around, it's just kind of like, oh, I don't want to, I don't want to deal with this cocky attitude right now. It doesn't get anybody anywhere.
I thought I was gonna have to bleep you there for a second, Kristen.
Oh, come on.
So I've got Sean's got a question.
Hey, yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
I was just curious on, I know I like to get ahead of myself, but anyway, where do you hear about these auditions and stuff?
Oh.
Whether it's musical theater, band, whatever.
Okay, that's a good question. There's a couple of different ways in Cincinnati. One of them that's extremely active is a Facebook group called Cincinnati Area Musicians. Let me just verify that real quick, because that's a great question.
Yeah, that sounds right, Danny. I'm in that one.
Area Musicians, and that's got 6,000 members. I see posts on there all the time about this instrument or that instrument or this band or that band forming. I mean, I don't need those posts, so it doesn't, I don't get a lot out of it, but if you're looking to audition, that's a good spot. CincyMusic.com has a lot of one ad style listings for bands, if that's what you're looking for. As far as musical theater and information about what shows are happening and what auditions are happening, I would try Cincinnati League of Theaters website. Cincinnati League of Theaters. You can just Google it. And they're kind of like a conglomerate of they kind of have their hands. I'm not exactly sure how they function, but they would definitely be one place that would be constantly posting in a more generalistic way, like a comprehensive, whatever shows are doing auditions this week or that week in a more whole area. CincyMusic.com might have that too. I've never really looked at it for that, but Cincinnati League of Theaters is a very, very good organization, and they do reviews of musicals all around town and plays too. And that's just really, they seem to be in the know. The other thing you could do as far as finding auditions for theater stuff, I mean, we have, assuming, everybody comes out on top at the end of this mess, I mean, we've got 40 theaters in Cincinnati, and the vast majority of them are community theaters. We have one of the largest concentration of just community supported community non-paid theater that I've ever seen. They're always looking for guys.
Mm-hmm.
Always looking for guys. And you know, and the funny thing about musical theater is that maybe they're starting to get away from it, but I mean, the roles are much heavier on the male side. For if you just look at the catalog of musical theater, you know, like I have a book that I use when we're trying to find shows to pick that takes the breakdown of every show. And I mean, it's like 35 guys, you know, 25 guys, 12 girls, or even a bigger disparity than that. That's very common. So, you know, they're pretty desperate for guys. You got an in right out of the gate if you're a guy singer. Any other questions?
I've got I just kind of want to reinforce a point that you made, Danny. The School of Rock has auditions for All-Stars every year, and the All-Stars go on tour. And it's a big honor to be selected, and it's very, very, very competitive. One of the things that was represented as feedback, not specifically to any of our kids, but to some of the kids who auditioned, was, to your point, the dress code. You know, if you walk in a ratty T-shirt and sweatpants, and you're representing, you know, the top 0.25% of School of Rock students, you know, you're probably not going to get picked. It's the kid in the whatever. Like you said, you know, make yourself not necessarily stand out, but have, you know, look the part. And that's something that on a 4.5-minute video audition,
Okay.
that can make the difference between you and the 1,000 other kids that are applying.
Well, and just to reinforce what you said too, that also is, if it's eye-catching in the way that you're dressed, like, once again, there's a lot of choices being made.
Right.
And even if you've got like every picture in front of you and every video of every student, like, you're still just, as a human being, going to get drawn to that guy in like that friggin' cool, bright yellow embroidered shirt, or something that it was just like, not to stand out, like, in the sense, I'm sure what Josh is talking about, like, you don't want to look goofy unless that just like is super, like, some people can pull that off, you know, but just, it's very obvious when no thought went into it.
Right.
Let's put it that way. You know, it's very, very obvious. So that's cool. But yeah, I mean, that's a great opportunity. I mean, I have not been at School of Rock enough to remember that they had that big all-star band, but I knew about it because we had one that went for it when I first was at the school, keyboard player. But yeah, it's all the same thing. I mean, especially at that level, like, there, you know, what do you have to, like, how do you audition for it, Josh?
It's a audition that you play a piece, required piece and an extra piece, and there are some required questions that you
Can
answer.
anybody do it?
Yeah, any student can do it. The first step is the house band audition, actually. So
Once you get in house band.
yeah, you have to make it through the house band audition, and I think you have to be 12 years old. Sorry, Bella.
And you go? Are you talking about a video submission? Or
That's a video submission. Then a month later, there's a live audition. Presumably, this year's was canceled.
Right.
But we sent 2 kids through, and actually, your former student made it as well through.
Did he?
Yeah, through the first round. So Teddy Meckley and Daniel Berman are in the
good.
round as well. Yep.
They're auditioning, or they're in it?
They're in the final round of
Awesome.
audition. So they're stuck, unfortunately, with their video audition. But we'll know by May 1st whether they made it or not.
Yeah, good. Well, that's pretty neat. But yeah, so like, even that, like, such an example of what I was saying earlier of, if you send in that sharp video, looking good, sounding good, good sound, good song selection, well rehearsed, professional from top to bottom, think about how many submissions they're having to look through, you know? I mean, that's from all over the country. So yeah. And you're videoed, but then you're really like, right. The ones that are top notch jump out, obviously playing wise, but you know, you want the whole package. You want right. every detail to be perfection. You know, that's really what it's all about. You know, that's why we spend 4 months on a show. We want to kill it. We don't want it to not be polished around the edges.
Yep. I'm looking forward to seeing those recordings of the Bowie songs and all the other shows. It's going to be great.
We'll,
So
we'll give it a shot. Just, we'll see how it all goes. Seems like a easy enough concept.
yeah, I have a sneak peek already of the house band progress, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So we're over on time. I want to wrap it up. Thank you to Danny for putting this together today. What day is this? Wednesday. So we've got one more masterclass tomorrow at noon. And then our very own Kristen Kreft is hosting open mic night on Friday night at 7:30. If you haven't signed up yet, Logan, you should sign up. Mika, you should sign up. Colin, you should sign up. Sean, you should sign up. Everybody should be in there. And thank you, everybody. Have a good day. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, everybody. I hope that
Thank
was
you,
helpful.
guys.